The first player I picked on Friday, Anthony, was Austin Ekeler. That was a good pick by your boy. The reason that I picked Austin Ekeler was because of the Commanders' use of pony personnel. Pony just means two halfbacks, and the Commanders actually used two different varieties of pony personnel in this game. They used 21 pony, where it's two running backs, one tight end. They also used 20 pony, where it's two running backs, zero tight ends. And they used them both very effectively. The Commanders used pony at one of the highest rates in the league, and Eckler's a big part of that. And there's different ways that they do it where they can sometimes literally just have two backs in the backfield, and they did some of that stuff. They would split Ekeler out. They would use Ekeler in like a tight end almost alignment where he could be a chipper, and one of his big receptions actually comes when he chips a rusher, gets out. The receivers had run deeper down the field. I believe this play was out of 20, where they send other players vertical. If one of those guys pops, great, throw it. If not, check it down because all your zone players go chasing after those guys. And then you have a ton of space. And Jayden quickly gets the ball to Austin as soon as he's out in his route off the chip. And that's a big 20-plus yard gain. That was the 24-yarder. Obviously, late, he also has that big 35-yard run. All in all, 6 rushes, 47 yards, 4 catches, 41 yards for Ekeler. And just a huge, huge, huge impact on this offense. An offense that at times can struggle to find explosive plays. He gives you 2 of them. And he gives you some good, solid gains in between. Also good in pass protection. And by the end of the day, Anthony, Pro Football Focus had him as their highest-rated offensive player in the game. He scored a 90.8 per PFF in his 28 snaps. By the way, well, actually, no, never mind. I'll just save that till later. But yeah, Austin Ekeler, number 1. Good choice by me.
Nah, great choice, for sure. I think Austin, he sort of kind of showed spurts of what we saw early in the season. Like prior to him missing all that time due to the concussion, it sort of kind of gave us, glimpses of, what we saw early in the season. The fact that he's so dynamic, not only in the run game, but also the passing game. And he had, huge chunks of yardage in both. So I think this was a great choice, and we're going to need him again. When we play these Eagles, just being able to, establish the run with him and B-Rob and both of them be impactful is what we've been wanting for, the last 4 or 5 weeks. And we got that on Sunday.
For sure. They did so much cool stuff with formations. And I'm very, very curious to see what they can do against Philly. Detroit had some tells. Like some of the stuff that Washington ran really well was, especially in the run game, this is more B-Rob than Ekeler, but for both of them to an extent, was stuff that Buffalo had run very, very effectively. Same formations, and they're good at finding those things. So one of the things I want to do before Take Command on Thursday when we do our preview show and before we get deeper into the previews on this show is I want to go back and watch some of the big plays that Philly has given up, especially the run game. Like how do teams get them? And see if some of those are some of the things that Washington does well, and then can they do that on Sunday. Number 2, please.
Number 2.
Oh, I just closed the document, Anthony, which is, a professional radio host's favorite trick. Let me pull up back my notes. Oh, that's right. Number 2 was Percy Butler, who I selected because I thought that the Commanders would play big nickel quite a bit in this game. And sure enough, Percy Butler, they played a lot of dime in this game, which we'll get to in a second. But big nickel, when they have 3 safeties and 2 corners, dime, 3 safeties, 3 corners, ultimately 6 defensive backs on the field. The 27 snaps that Percy Butler played in this game were his 5th highest of the season. He played a season-high 56 against Dallas because Quan Martin was out. He played 49 against Baltimore, 34 against Pittsburgh, 29 against Cincinnati, and then 27 this weekend against Detroit. And he didn't play great. He played like Percy Butler. But I think you saw the reason why I selected him. He's out there against Sam Laporta on that sick. He actually didn't play that one that badly. Sam Laporta made one of the sickest catches that you'll ever see, that one-handed catch for the touchdown. He's also out there on the reverse. He gets caught As it was really Quan is the one that kind of gets caught in a really bad spot. Percy's the backside safety on that, and what it looks like the front side of the run before the reverse gets flipped around. So it would have been great if he could have chased that down, but Quan's the safety on that side who kind of gets caught chasing the run because, hey, got to be strong, got to pursue the run, got to be there in my gap. Oh, no, it's a reverse going the other way. Like, that's just a tough break. That's a well-designed play, well executed by Detroit. But overall, you see that. And then the other thing that I think is interesting, why he played so many snaps in part, is they go dime in 2-minute situations. And Detroit, from 7.5 minutes in the fourth quarter to the end of the game, was in no huddle or was throwing incompletions. And the only reason they were huddling is because the clock was stopped. So Washington's ability to get Detroit out of their comfort zone in this game offensively, even though they scored 31, they did turn it over 5 times. And there's a bunch of key moments where Detroit wasn't as sharp as they usually are. And Percy was on the field for some of those. But I think you saw and we're going to talk about it in a second with Zack Herz, the way that Washington consistently adjusted and kind of made sure they had the best option on the field defensively by Joe Witt versus the way that Detroit handled it, which is very different. And I think that led to some of the different results.
Do you like Percy more in the box or the post?
I don't have a strong lean either way.
Yeah,
I feel like I would like him. I like the idea of him in the post is a really fast guy. I like, but I don't know that his reaction times let him play with the speed that he has. In some ways, I like him more in the box, where it's just like see ball, hit ball.
Yeah, I agree.
Where Quan seems to read the field a little bit better. All right, number three, Zack Herz. What a game for Zack Herz, including a 4th down conversion, including a touchdown. Also including the onside kick recovery at the end. But the reason I picked him was kind of the inverse of what I just talked about Percy Butler. How was Detroit going to match Zack Herz? And the answer was Detroit matched everything the same. I charted the entire personnel in the first half. Anthony, Detroit played 0 snaps outside of the 5-yard line in anything other than nickel. It was nickel, and the Commanders threw every personnel grouping you could think of at Detroit. 20, 21, 11, 12, 10, 1, 0 running backs, 1 tight end, 0 tight ends, 1 running back. Like they did everything. 4 wide receivers here, 3 wide receivers here, 2 receivers. Detroit's just like, we're playing nickel. These are our best dudes, especially after Amik Robertson got hurt. Like, these are our best dudes. They're going to play. And what it did was it allowed at times, like, because Zach can play essentially wide receiver and basically does essentially play wide receiver. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have a bunch and we're going to pull it all the way out towards the numbers. And now we have a linebacker who's man-to-man on Zack Herz. That's like, well, I have a run responsibility in the box because I'm like the 6th player in the box, not even the 7th, the 6th. But my guy that I got to cover in man-to-man's way out there. And so he's kind of like splitting the difference. And we saw like a different version of that on the Brian Branch blitz into the Terry screen that went for the touchdown. And Zach was a huge weapon for some of that stuff. The way they formation some things and his versatility, the touchdown he gets, he starts inside but then motions outside right before the snap and then runs what I would call like a Texas route, kind of an angle route, and gets back inside and just big bodies his defender. He's open. Jayden hits him for the touchdown. And so just time and time again, the way they're able to use Zach, formation it, motion it, to get him in advantageous situations and then let him use the dark arts of route running to do his thing. Really great job by Cliff. Really great job by Zach. Really great job by Jayden. And that leads to Ertz having a big day in all the ways that you would think he'd have a big day, which is kind of a bad thing for Detroit, which is probably why they lost.
Yeah, the dude, Zack Herz, man, he, like, talk about a security blanket. Anytime we need a play, that is who Jayden's going to. The 3rd and goal, he goes to him. We get the touchdown. The 4th and, I guess it was 4th and 3 from like the 5. He ends up going to Ertz. I will say, him throwing the ball to Ertz in the flat on, what was it, a 3rd and 2 or something like that? I was a little concerned just because Ertz doesn't get yards after the catch. And
no, they needed that to be a lot more open. And Detroit played that one well, but you're not going to win them all. but they won. But wasn't that right before the 4th and 3?
Yeah, it was.
And they did that twice, right? They tried to go to Terry on a 3rd down in the red zone.
And then they came right back.
And then they came back to him on 4th down.
Yep.
And Jayden Jayden had like 2 really bad misses in this game, and he wound up like avenging both of them because he had a miss in the flat on the touchdown to John Bates, and then he hits Bates on the 20-yarder later.
Yep.
And then the play right before Terry on the 4th down is this really beautiful like pick play basically where Terry's got a wide open slant. It's a walk-in probably. They certainly get the conversion, and Jayden just flat out misses it. Like uncharacteristic rush throw, bad ball. And then he comes back and dots him on 4th down and celebrate Scary Terry. Hoorah. Number 4, I picked Daron Payne, which admittedly was probably my least interesting pick of the 6 players that I picked on Friday because I should have picked John Allen. John Allen was awesome in this game. His best game, I don't know, Anthony, in 2 years?
John's?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play a ton this year. Wasn't very good very often last year. There's moments he had last year for sure, but man, this was vintage. Like, oh, yeah, that's why that guy got paid all that money, John Allen. His ability to hold at the point of attack, his ability to penetrate and make plays. I mean, he should have had even more impact in this game. The Laporta one-handed touchdown, people forget that is a ridiculous play by Jared Goff. He is doing the Pat Mahomes fall down and throw it bit. You know who's tackling him?
John
Allen. Daron Payne in this game, he his PFF grade was pretty bad. Didn't record a tackle. But they did use that formation, some with him on the edge, and being able. I think he's so key this week because I mean this formation kind of really came to life against Philly the second time around when they made that change and stopped Saquon. But they need to be able to play heavy-handed. And do that with light boxes, and Daron is a huge key to that. But John can do that stuff too, and so I do wonder, does Daron bounce it back, and does he have a big game against Philly, or does John play on the edge a little bit more because they use John a little bit on the edge in this game? But I do think like Daron finding his pass rush, being more impactful is going to be big for this team if they want to win 2 more games, which at this point, that's all that's left to possibly win. Holy crap, they're in the NFC Championship game. Anything else on Daron?
Nah, nothing really to add.
Yeah, wasn't his best day at the office, and it wasn't all that interesting. All right, this guy had an interesting day.
Number 5.
Noah Igbinoghene, who had a couple of the targets at him, and that included one where I thought he actually played the coverage pretty well against Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's a great throw by Goff and a great catch by St. Brown, and they get that, I guess it's like a slot fade. It's an interesting formation. It's kind of like, it's not quite a bunch where there's 3 receivers bunched together. It's kind of a 2-receiver stack, and then 1 receiver removed from the bunch, but still on a relatively tight split. And I think what that did, and going into painstaking detail here because I thought it was really good design by Ben Johnson and by Detroit, is if you're in the bunch, you are typically hip to that stuff if you're a corner. Like if you're playing man-to-man and you're like, oh, we're in a bunch, I'm probably going to get a pick play here. Because he was separated off the bunch, it turns the alarm dials down just a little bit, and it makes it actually a little bit, like as long as you execute it well, and Tim Patrick did it without drawing an offensive pass interference flag, then you can be pretty effective there. And so that was a really nice design by Detroit. It's a good execution by Goff, good execution by St. Brown. It's a tough catch. Noah could have definitely played it better. I'm not excusing him, but it's not one where I look at and I'm like, terrible job by Noah Igbinoghene. Overall in the game, where is he? 47 on the coverage grade, 47 on the overall grade, because their PFF is going to be like, nope, you should have been more impactful in coverage. And I get it. He was targeted 8 times, gave up 5 receptions for 93 yards, including that 34-yard long. They credit him having given up 60 yards after the catch as well. So like that's obviously not going to help your PFF grade. But the thing that I do think is good and what is worth mentioning, and part of the reason I was curious to see or curious to have him on the list, one was the St. Brown piece of it, but the other was how would he play against the run. He had a 79 run grade from PFF, and he's in the mix on a couple of those the runs, and his ability to at least mix it up, if not flat out make a tackle or fill or do whatever, but at least to bog down some of the outside runs to let backside pursuit or let the linebackers get back involved, give Bobby a little bit extra time to shed a block. Like, he was, as a guy who's right on the edge of the box, he did a good job, and that's been a huge, I think, boon for him this year to be a physical football player, and I thought he did a good job of that in this game, even if there's always going to be, I would say, something to be desired in coverage for Noah. And this week, hopefully a lighter week for him, because we know that Philly doesn't do anything but target their outside guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely showed up on tape in the tackling aspect of things. Jahmyr Gibbs isn't an easy tackle. Dave Montgomery isn't an easy tackle either. So just the fact, he's willing to get his nose dirty, and that's what Joe Witt, that's all he wants out of all his corners, to be honest. That's why Forbes didn't, last year, because
right.
He didn't want to do that necessarily. So.
By the way, it's why Dotson's not here either, because he didn't block, which is the offensive version of tackling. And now we'll see Noah and Jahan do battle this weekend. Last but not least,
number 6.
Oh, man, was Dyami Brown not least. 6 catches, 98 yards. Arguably his best game as a pro. The catch he makes on that 32-yarder, 38-yarder, where his eyes are covered, like that's sick. He's got the 42-yarder on the big cross concept where he just flies on that big X with Terry McLaurin going the other way. Jayden's able to read it out. The toughness he shows as a runner, the physicality on what I would call like some big body routes. Like, can you run a comeback and get some separation and get back to the football and push a guy off without committing OPI at the top of the route? Like, he did that in this game. Just a little bit of everything from Dyami Brown, as well as some good blocking in the game. Like, Dyami Brown is turned into a really, really, really good football player. And that's great. What does that mean for his future? We were talking about this in a break earlier, Anthony. Like, I'm not re-signing Dyami Brown to be like, oh, we've solved all of our number 2 receiver problems. I don't know that 3 games. Now, look, if he has 2 more, and this is just who he is, and they're seeing this every day in practice, then maybe that's a different conversation, and they can have that conversation with Dyami Brown's agent. But I'm not like, oh, they got to bring Dyami back and pay him a bunch of money to be the number 2. But if I'm going to draft a guy that I hope develops in my number 2, and I know that early on I'm going to not be able to trust that guy with a full complement of number 2 reps, hell yeah, I want to bring Dyami Brown back. And I want to bring Dyami back anyway if he'll come back, no matter pretty much what the situation. I just think if you're going to go sign like a T. Higgins, it becomes maybe less responsible because you want T out there for a super high number of snaps, but also T's got an injury history. So maybe you do want Dyami Brown, even if you go sign a T. Higgins. So I think that's an interesting one to watch, but no doubt Dyami Brown has made himself money. No doubt he has elevated who he is as a player, and no doubt it's helping them win football games. So hats off to Dyami. I love talking to Dyami when we had him on the show in the middle of the season, and just like hats off to that dude for putting in a ton of work, and now he's reaping the rewards.
Yeah, he's having a hell of a postseason. Him and Terry actually lead all receivers in receiving yards for the postseason. So the fact, he's stepping up in these moments, something he hasn't done in his entire career, I'll take it right now.
For sure.
These moments matter more. So
Jayden is the playoffs leading passer, and much of that yardage has gone in the direction of 2 and 17. Yep. All right, that is our pick 6 at 6. Tomorrow's pick 6 will be a traditional Wednesday pick 6, so you'll hear from Jayden Daniels and Dan Quinn. Also, because it's championship week, there's a couple other folks that are speaking at the podium, so you might have some extra voices in there as well as we give you the top headlines and sound bites of the day at 6 o'clock.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.